You were sports minister in 2012, overseeing the London Games. How did it make you feel on Friday when you were told, along with all of us, by Professor McLaren, that in effect London had been sabotaged by cheating Russians?
I was saddened, but not particularly surprised, if I'm completely honest. And indeed, it's in a sense it's wrong for me to feel sad about it. The effect is really on those athletes who are cheated out of medals and cheated out of their moment on the podium because of people who've been doping. The effect of this is most severe on athletes, not on organising committees.
There will inevitably be calls now for Russia to be punished by being banned for the next Winter Games in Pyeongchang, for them to lose the privilege of hosting the next World Cup a few months after Pyeongchang. Do you support those calls?
I think we need to look at them very carefully indeed. We're in a process at the moment. The McLaren report came out last week. The IOC issued a very strong and very robust statement straight afterwards. They will now look at the evidence and make recommendations accordingly. I think a huge help in all of this would be if Russia itself admitted that it's got it wrong and that it's got a problem, because in a sense that's the first stage in what needs to happen next. And clearly we at the British Olympic Association will look at it very carefully and take decisions accordingly.
But given that they're not doing what you'd like them to do and admitting that they've got it wrong, there does seem to be this defiance, this theory that it's something of a Western conspiracy. And given that we're not that long away from Pyeongchang, or indeed the 2018 World Cup, do you honestly believe that Russia can be trusted in the next year? Can it reform itself so quickly?
It is perfectly possible in the next year, if there is the will and leadership to put this right. What is really important is that we see that there is that will and leadership to put it right. And as I say, the fact is it can be done in a year, so it's really up to them to take the necessary action. And the first step is to admit they've got a problem.
A British Winter Olympian, Lizzie Arnold, has said that she's minded, or she's certainly going to consider boycotting the World Championships in her event, which are in Russia in March, or at least they are at the moment. How much sympathy do you have for that stance?
Enormous sympathy, and we would back any athlete that took that stance. At the time, clearly the time difference for her is much shorter than it is with the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang in just over a year's time, but absolutely, for any governing body or British athlete that took that stance, we would support them entirely.
And how likely is it that the governing body of that sport will say we're not competing, like Latvia have said this weekend they're not going to compete?
Difficult to say at the moment. We haven't received any indications one way or another, but again, if they chose not to compete for the reasons that the Latvians have, we would support them entirely.